In this video, I'm going to be talking about how we see different colors of light. So light has to enter through the eyeball, hit the back where the retina is at, and we have some different cones. Cones are different cells, which are photoreceptors that absorb light that enters our eye. We have one that absorbs red, green, and blue frequencies, and when they combine in certain combinations or percentages, our brain perceives all these different colors that we see in our daily lives. So on the bottom here, we have the light color wheel, which is the thing that's going to be the most pertinent to us. There is a color wheel that's for pigment, which is basically like mixing paints or inks, and that's going to be a little bit different. So that one we're not going to focus on. So we have some primary colors, which are green, red, and blue, and we have secondary colors, which are yellow, magenta, and cyan, and we have white, which is a combination of all of them. All right, so let's take a look at 5 different scenarios, and we're going to see what we end up perceiving. So we have something like a cyan light source shining on something that's yellow. So it's a pretty simple process. You basically just break everything down into their primary colors. So we have cyan, which is a secondary color, which is made up of green and blue. So I'm going to go ahead and write G and B next to it. And we have yellow, which is capable of reflecting red and green. Now, what makes anything yellow is it has a certain capability to reflect those two colors, red and green, and when they're mixed together, we perceive it as yellow. So you just want to find the primary colors that the light source and the object have in common, and that's what's reflected into your eye. So this object over here that's yellow is capable of reflecting red light, but there is no red light shining on it, so it can't reflect something that's not shining on it, but it does have some green. So because it has the green in common, we are going to end up seeing green as our final product. Okay, so although this thing would normally be yellow under the sun or under a white light, in this particular situation, it's going to be perceived as green. So let's go ahead to the next one. We're going to use the same process. We have yellow again, except it's a yellow light source. It is still made out of red and green, and blue is already a primary color, so we don't need to break it down any farther. Now, this one's actually an interesting case because something that's blue is only capable of reflecting blue light. Now, of course, it can't reflect blue light unless you give it blue light. So these ones don't have any colors of light in common, so nothing is reflected. So we typically call that black, okay, which is the absence of light entering the eye. So we're not going to reflect any light rays up to the eyeball. I'm just going to write down the word black. Now for our next one, we have white light, which is usually what we view things under, and that is a combination of everything. It's got the red, green, and blue. Magenta is our secondary color over here. So it's capable of reflecting red and blue. So these ones, excuse me, this combination over here has 2 things in common, which is red and green. So this one has 2 different colors in common, which is the red and the blue. So it's given red light and it can reflect red light, and it's given blue light and it can reflect blue light. Now, if it has a combination of red and blue reflecting off of that object, then we are going to see magenta. Now for our next one, we have a red light source, and a red light source doesn't need to be broken down any farther because it is a primary color. Again, magenta can reflect red and blue, and it does have that red in common with the light source, so that means that red light is going to be reflected into the eyeball, so the object is perceived as something to be red. Now for the final one, We have cyan. It is composed of the blue and the green. So that means we have blue and green light coming in towards that green object. This one can't be broken down any further because it's a primary color. So it has the greens in common. So it is able to be seen as green. So now if something is a primary color, if the object is a primary color, it can only be seen as the actual color, its like natural color itself, which is green or black. Because if you don't give it that green light, then it can't reflect anything. And in the absence of light, it appears to be black. So to sum things up, when you take a look at these scenarios, you basically break everything up into the primary colors that it's composed of. If it is a secondary color, or if it's white light, if it's a primary color, you just kind of leave it alone. And then you see what the light source and the object have in common. And then that particular color or colors are reflected into the eyeball, and that makes you perceive a certain color. Thank you for watching and listening.